on the opportunities and challenges of AI. I'm delighted to welcome our panelists, His Excellency Anwar Ibrahim, the Prime Minister of Malaysia. With the initials A and I, he's definitely the AI Prime Minister. Prime Minister, your thoughts. Let's just continue. What do you see as the conditions required to create a successful deployment of AI? Let's think about it from a Malaysian perspective.
From our experience, and now that we are able to attract huge investments from all these big players, then we realize that we need to therefore move as a speed unprecedented for energy, water, and also the understanding, basic training and exposure, changing the curriculum in universities, in colleges, and schools. And so it is a multi-pronged attack. And changes are, easier said than done, because there is also resistance from traditional manner education being taught and introduced. So I think thus far we are successful because we listen. We don't claim to have expertise. So the moment our friends from Microsoft, Google, or Huawei, or whatever comes and say, look, you give some time, let us listen what you require. Now, okay, energy means green energy, which means green hydrogen, ammonia. So all these things are being done, and I'm proud to say that even within ASEAN, we're talking about an ASEAN grade that help, for example, create or provide more energy. And they were talking about now reassessing our entire policy on water conservation, because we have never seen the requirements of water except by these data centers. I don't know what they do with it, but then they've been asking for more water, more energy. I said water, not water.
Water.
Yes.
Sorry, that was a joke from before. We'll explain it later.
So I think you're right, which means public policy and governments cannot assume that they can go on inviting and attracting these sort of investments without being prepared to undertake major reform initiatives, which would allow these agencies or investments to come in. And the other question is, of course, the speed of approvals. Now, we are stuck with some bureaucratic rules, and we have to be able to coordinate, to bypass this. And then, and a system is not monolithic. We have state governments, we have municipalities. Now, how do you cut across all this? I'm proud to say in the initial, Google would testify to that, or Microsoft, or Huawei, or whatever, NVIDIA, we are able to do it. Once you do it with one particular major investor, then the word spread out. And now I think, and because we're fortunate in ASEAN, this region, ASEAN, happens to be one of the most peaceful in the world. Malaysia, for example, politically is very stable. And then the coordination, the work within the regional, sub-regional grouping is excellent, and that allows us, with more than 3 trillion combined GDP, now moving as one of the fastest growing economy in the world. So I think we should exploit this. But it's a very important point, and you just said, we have to listen. We have to understand that this form of government or governance, global governance, of course, rid the country of corruption, abuse of power. This, to me, fundamental. But the way we do things is not to assume that political leadership has all the answers. These are new technologies, it's challenging, and it is something that demands our immediate reaction. And how do we do it? To tap on their expertise, you see, which normally great political leaders are quite reluctant to do, because we are supposed to be the smartest and able to solve the problems of the world, not realizing we have created too many problems. So I think in our approach, every time, in fact, I ask Zia, when are you coming? because my plan is that he must sit down at least for 1 or 2 hours with our top players, the politicians, bureaucrats, academicians, experts, to be able to share his experience, and we would then use it. Because they can invest, and we're not going to pay honorarium for his speeches. And so far, we have been quite successful. I think I take that account in all humility to acknowledge that the technology is changing so fast, which means government leaders have to accept and acknowledge that we have to also change the pace of a normal government bureaucracy to an extent that it is really competitive and attractive. And thus far, I must say, Alhamdulillah, thank God, we are able to achieve that. Although, as the great George Bernard Shaw used to say, there's always room for improvement.
But I think what is also really important to pull out of what you've just articulated, in the context of ASEAN, and you're chairing ASEAN for the coming year, there is going to be a need for some form of regional cooperation, regional infrastructure, because not all jurisdictions have land or energy access that's going to be required for this digital economy for AI. So I think an additional point I'd like to come back to a little bit later in the conversation about that.
To add just two major thrusts in our, for example, ASEAN for next year, I've been thinking. One is the ASEAN grid, which means we'll benefit, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, we'll work together. Second is digitalization. Common digital agenda, legal framework, somewhat similar incentives, and we complement each other because some countries have expertise but no water, some have energy, but so we are keen to have this sort of collaboration, more effective.
Prime Minister, final thoughts.
Well, will there be disruptions? Yes. But look at it in two areas. Number one, historical antecedents. During the Industrial Revolution, there were massive disruptions. But human ingenuity, that's the second point, will be able to somehow or other utilize their expertise and innovation to create new jobs. And no one in the study of the history of the Industrial Revolution talks about grave unemployment. Yes, exploitation of workers is a different subject, but in terms of employment, it's no longer an issue. Similarly, we'll have to face that. I think the panelists have been focusing on the issue of training and expertise, which means we should not rely on a few of the so-called professional elites, but to make sure that it is the access to education is further democratized, either through a university or faculties or massive training. I believe that in our Malaysian experience, the huge focus on digital for the people, for the rakyat, it's a little like a mass education, like the alphabetization, the new introduction to basic reading, 3R. But here it is focused on digital technology, on AI, and never underestimate the wisdom of the masses, even without real formal education. We have tried in some districts about coding, who has poor mathematics, poor science, no engineering, but expert in coding. I can't explain how, but somehow or other, human ingenuity forced them to then excel in some fields. So I think whilst we must address these concerns with immediate disruption in some areas, but the strategy and the focus and public policy to embark on this massive democratization of access to AI in every village, in every urban, including the urban poor and university and schools, if we can succeed in that, inshallah, we'll be able to resolve that problem. Arigato.
So there you have it. I hope you're as convinced as we are that there's incredible potential here. I want to congratulate our AI PM, Prime Minister. Thank you very much to all the panelists.